On Thursday, Elon Musk held a live all-hands Tesla event where he gave an update on every part of the business. He dropped several major bombshells, and we'll review each of these today. Elon confirmed 5,000 bots to be delivered this year, and eventually Tesla will be making an unbelievable 100 million bots per year. The production of the Cybercab will be so revolutionary, they expect cars coming off the line every 5 seconds versus 35 seconds for the Model Y. He also updated Tesla's mission to now be about sustainable abundance. How does this change, if any, our Tesla stock forecast? Let's ask Cern Basher, who's a top Tesla analyst. Cern is a chartered financial analyst who's currently running his own investment advisory firm called BrilliantAdvice, providing wealth management services. Welcome, Cern.
Hi, Herbert. Yeah, this was a pleasant, unexpected surprise last night.
So Elon, just did a live event with Tesla employees, and he covered a number of the business, almost every business part, and he gave an update on where they're going. There was quite a number of bombshell announcements that were, at first you thought, oh, that sounds similar, but it's actually not. So let's take a look at what we're seeing here. This is Elon talking at his event. Okay, and then you've got, you did a great job of summarizing everything. So if you want to know what he talked about, go to X at Cern Basher. And in fact, Elon liked your post so much, he said, good summary, and he forwarded it because what you did here was you basically went down and everything he said, you put a line item. So I took out the ones that I thought was most important. Let's start with Optimus. We'll talk about Cybercab, and then we'll talk about sustainable abundance and other things he said. So first with Optimus, he said, Optimus is going into production this year. The new 22 degrees of freedom hand is now in production. The most sophisticated human or robot on Earth. Our robot has a real brain, whereas others don't. And then he said, it's going to be the biggest product of all time by far. Then he also said this, we hope to make 5,000 Optimus, this year, 50,000 in 2026. So we'll take a look at this and listen to it. So what did you think about the event last night, sir?
Well, overall, the event was fantastic. Again, it was a pleasant surprise. And just to see Elon on stage and how comfortable he is talking about the breadth of the opportunity at Tesla, I think was happily received by Tesla shareholders. I think there's this preconceived notion that Elon has been absent from Tesla, and that's clearly not the case. Elon seems to have this superhuman ability to work on many, many different things at once. I think there are very few people in the world that have the capability that he has to work on numerous things. And of course, these are world-changing things. And the breadth of what he talked about last night was, again, impressive. Most of it wasn't new for people that follow Tesla very closely. But again, just to see him on the stage and take questions from employees was a really welcome sight.
I also do think that he did say things that the way you listen to what he said, it's the confirmation, it's his confidence that it's actually happening. Yeah. And the most important one for us Tesla investors is the bot on track this year? Is Cybercab and Robotics on track this year? And this is what you can listen to. So listen to what he actually said here.
This robots, we're technically, we're aiming for enough parts to make 10,000, maybe 12,000. But since it's a totally new product with totally new, like everything is totally new, I'll say like we're succeeding if we get to half of the 10,000. Now, but even 5,000 robots, that's the size of a Roman legion, FYI, which is like a little scary thought, like a whole legion of robots. I'd be like, whoa, okay. But I think we'll literally build a legion, at least one legion of robots this year, and then probably 10 legions next year. And I don't know, it's kind of a cool unit, units of legion. So probably 50,000-ish next year, and then it's probably ready I'm hopefully ready for Optimus to be used outside of Tesla-controlled environment, or maybe around the middle of next year, second half of next year sometime. So that's, I think, yeah, sounds about right. Probably second half of next year is when they'll be available. And then we will offer Optimus robots first to Tesla employees. So you guys get the priority. There are some pluses and minuses to that, because it's probably have a few bugs, but it's going to be very cool. You'll want to invite your friends over and say, check this out. So that's the other questions.
All right. What did you get out of that, sir?
Well, first of all, there'll be a lot of people that'll be applying for a job at Tesla just so they can get in line to get an Optimus robot. It'd be very tempting, in fact, for all of us to do that. But yeah, I mean, it's an exciting future ahead for Optimus. Those numbers are in line, I think, with what he previously said. There's some extra detail in terms of parts, for 10,000 to 12,000 robots, but make about 5,000. So, clearly they're working on, ramping that up. They've already produced their first Optimus from their Fremont production line, and he showed an image of that last night. And it just takes time for these things to ramp up. But it appears that Optimus is on track. I think there's also a recognition there from Elon that the diversity of data is going to be important for Optimus, and to get them in the homes as quickly as possible through Tesla employees, I think is a really wise thing. And we're hearing that from other robotics companies as well, whether it's Figure or 1X or Apptronic. We've heard similar statements from those companies. So that's exciting because Optimus is the future of Tesla ultimately.
So, so he said that there's 5,000 bots this year, and then you've got him on the other side saying this as well. At the way he ended it, right? We'll be making tens of millions of robots a year, serious volume, maybe 100 million robots a year. The Optimus production, by the way, is in Fremont, and an even bigger production line going to be in Austin. So when he said at some point 100 million robots a year, what's your forecast, and how did it compare to what you had been saying all along about your projections of what Tesla's going to do?
Yeah, I put a forecast together a few months ago, out to 2035 for Tesla, and in 2035 I had them making 50 million Optimus robots a year at that point. So 10, 11 years from now. So 100 million would be twice that number. Either way, that's a colossal number of robots. Elon also mentioned last night that Optimus as a product could be 10x any previous product that's ever been put into in terms of being sold. As far as I know, Apple iPhone probably is the most successful single product that the world's ever seen, and an estimated about 2.6 billion iPhones have been sold since 2007. And so that's probably between $1 and $2 trillion of revenue. So 10x that, you're looking at 10 to 20 trillion of revenue for Optimus. Again, these are just rough numbers, but that's the kind of scale and the kind of opportunity that we're looking at, I think, with Optimus ultimately. The challenge with a lot of these things, I think, is that we tend to overestimate the short term and massively underestimate the long term. It's clear to me that the long term opportunity for Optimus is staggeringly large. And the question is, how long will it take to get there? And I would expect over the next 10, 15 years, I think we'll be in that range that he talked about last night of 100 million Optimus produced each year.
So the comment you make is so true, right? People just totally underestimate the future. So people cannot even fathom 100 million. Well, let's go back to what's going to happen now, this year, the next several months. He said 5,000 bots. But the way he said it was, he said, we are creating a production line that should be capable of doing 10 to 12,000, but let's say cut in half, we'll make 5,000. That's the way I heard it. It's like like for him to say that now in March, it's a confidence level is pretty high that we're going to hit 5,000. That's going to be our minimum. What did you hear? Are you feeling confident about what he's saying, or?
Yes and no. I mean, I think it's too early to know for sure. His confidence is certainly a good thing. That said, maybe Elon, tends to be maybe a little bit overconfident. He has a little bit of a history of that, although in the long term, he more than delivers on what he promises. So I'm not too worried about whether it's 5,000 this year or 10,000 or some other number. If they do encounter some issue, that could reduce the number.
Yep.
And you know what? That's fine. That's to be expected at this point. I would expect that they'll encounter a number of issues along the way. There may even be some further design changes that that warrant them slowing things down and
Right.
waiting for those design changes to come through and then gear up production again. And that would be perfectly fine because it's the opportunity 5, 10, 15 years from now that really matters. And so everything that they do now to address any potential issues is good. And in fact, taking a pause to do that is perfectly fine. And I think we've seen that already with the new 22 degrees of freedom hand, right? And there may be other things that come up as well.
Okay, good. Yeah, and I think that his comment that next year, second of next year, they can sell this outside of Tesla. To me, that means that let's say they make 10,000 this year. Let's say they make 5,000 this year. Like you said, doesn't matter so much. Next year, he's shooting for 50,000. Let's say they make 25,000, whatever. But what matters is, can Tesla use all of the bots that they make next year if it's just pick and place? And I'm thinking, let's just assume, being very conservative, it's just pick and place all of next year. That's all that they can do. Then I think that it makes sense why they would then start selling it to outside of Tesla, because then they can really just use just pick and place. They'll get 5,000 per factory. That's 20,000 for Tesla owned use, and then they'll sell it to others, right? What's your expectations for next year?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's plenty of applications for pick and place. Although, if we're looking at late 2026,
Hmm.
let's call that 18 months from now, the development of the robot is going to be so much further along that it's not going to be just pick and place by then, right? If they were talking about selling them this year, then fine. That's maybe the opportunity that we're looking at. But he's not. He's talking about 18 months or so from now. The development of the robot is just going to be just leaps and bounds. We're seeing that with FSD and how quickly it improves. And we're seeing that from other robot makers in terms of the leaps that they're making in training their robots. And I'm confident that Tesla is making the same leaps. I don't see why they
Hmm.
wouldn't be. Just because they haven't shown us lately doesn't mean that they're not making leaps there. There's actually no incentive or benefit for Tesla to show anybody right now where they're at, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. It's a little. My point is that even if that's all they can do. It's just pick and place. It doesn't mean there's such a large market just for that alone. They can start
Mhm.
waiting another year longer until they get that extra. Okay, so let's talk Cybercab. This is
Well, and sorry, just before we go there, the pick and place opportunity is kind of interesting because you think every single warehouse, every single distribution center, right? Every single store, if you're restocking stores,
it's massive. Yeah.
right? It's
Yep.
there's millions of opportunities in just those markets. So yes, to your point, you're right. There's an incredible opportunity just with that. And companies like Walmart and Target and others, I'm sure, have a difficult time finding people, grocery stores, finding people to restock shelves. Right, robots would be perfect for that. You can put them in the store overnight, and they can restock everything and
Yep.
unlock the store in the morning, and everything's in the perfect spot.
Yeah. We're just
Yep,
talking 50 to 100,000 next year. Now, the following year, if you're doing a million, that's where it's going to go. Okay, well, what can it do? It better do
yep,
more than just pick and place at that point. We'll follow that closely.
yep.
So Cybercab, I think that Elon let out a few things that are brand new that we hadn't heard about. Just a little bit more confirmation here. He said things like the Cybercab production line looks like a high-speed consumer electronics line moving so fast that people can't get close to it. Cars coming off the line in 5 seconds. So that tells you two things, right? One is that it moves so fast that people can't get close to it, meaning that it sounds like it's fully automated, no need for humans, which is crazy for an auto production. Cars coming off the line in 5 seconds. Right now in Giga Shanghai, Model Y is coming out in 35 seconds. So what does that mean? And then he's talking about, I don't know, sometimes he says things like this that he's already doing, but he's just signaling to you. But he joked around and goes, we need even bigger casting machines, 50,000 tons. How big can a casting machine be? What are the limits of physics? Let's find out, so that you can have just one click like a toy car. um, I'll find a video of this, but meanwhile, just what was your thinking about this?
Yeah, I think the idea of the Cybercabs coming off a production line every 5 seconds is so mind-bending that it's impossible for anybody right now to imagine what that could be like. Um, I take him at his word here. I think they probably have engineered some pretty remarkable changes to the way that they produce vehicles. They've hinted at it before with this unbox process. And some of us have looked at that and said, yeah, that could really make a big difference. Every 5 seconds is astonishingly fast. And so we can't really wait to see what this might look like. In hearing from Lars, I think recently, it might have been this week, it might have been last week, he's talking about them putting this production line together now. And so perhaps by the end of the year, we start to see some early results from this. Although I would imagine that the initial speed won't be anything close to 5 seconds, and it doesn't need to be. But at 5 seconds, at about a 60% utilization on a daily basis, you're looking at 10,000 vehicles coming off the line, 10 to 11,000 coming off the line every day. If they can get to that number, that's staggeringly large. 100% utilization would be over 17,000 a day. So I wouldn't expect that. But 10 to 11,000 Cybercabs coming off the line each and every day, that might be something like, 3.6 million plus Cybercabs. That would be staggering. And of course, Elon is serious about ramping up the robotaxi network. And so you need a lot of vehicles for that. And Cybercabs are going to be the vehicle that's most needed. Again, 85, 90, 95% of the rides are with, 2 or less people. So you need a lot of these vehicles. If you can produce them cheaply and quickly, then that's what Tesla needs to do. So most of the growth, if not all the growth in new vehicles over the coming years, is probably going to be Cybercab.
So he did say that yesterday. He goes, every vehicle we make, or almost every vehicle make, is ready, as robotaxi ready, capable.
Mhm.
And he said we have 7 million vehicles today, and that by the end of next year, he said 10 million. So in a period from between March to December, and then the full of 12 months next year, we will get to 3 million. And he said just that alone, they're all going to be capable robotaxi. Now, does the new number that you just heard about the Cybercab production, does that change your forecast? Is it in line with your forecast? You need to revisit your forecast again?
Yeah, my forecasts for auto production this year are basically the same as last year. I think there's a possibility that it could be materially higher this year, depending on how things go. My Cybercab production estimates are pretty modest, and so this
Yeah.
would definitely change that.
Yeah.
Although, again, I think it's a question of how quickly can they ramp the line, and it probably takes 18 months to 2 years to really get it going. We'll have to see.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, I think Tesla can ultimately end up producing a pretty astonishing amount of vehicles at some point.
Love
Yeah.
it. Yeah, well, let's take a look again at your robotaxi assumptions, because I think things are changing, right? We got more countries that has been approved or about to get approved, right? You've got regulatory approval. You've got this comment about Cybercab that, like you said earlier, maybe you can be very conservative the first 2-3 years, and then it just becomes like crazy optimistic or more realistic based on what we're hearing here. And again, you could put buffers and say, I don't agree, but it'd be great to revisit that. Let's listen to what he actually said about the Cybercab.
We want to scale up production to new heights. Obviously, with the Cybercab, we're going to be. Cybercab is not just revolutionary car design; it's also a revolutionary manufacturing process. So I guess we probably don't talk about that enough. But if you've seen the design of the Cybercab line, it doesn't look like a normal car manufacturing line. It looks like a really high-speed consumer electronics line. It's, in fact, the line will move so fast that that actually people can't even get close to it. Like that's, I think it'll be able to produce a car ultimately in less than 5 seconds. Like, can you imagine a car coming off the line in less than 5 seconds? That's like, whoa. Which means casting's got to happen fast. Yeah. So I mean, we got to jam the liquid metal in, cool it down real fast, and then I guess maybe we need to just get even bigger casting machines. Sure, why not? Down. Yeah, let's 50,000 tons. Because then we can make in a single casting machine we could do 5 at a time or something. I'm trying to think how do you scale castings, because you got liquid metal's got to cool, and then you've got to automate getting all the bits and pieces off the casting so it's usable, and that's actually kind of how they do it in small volume castings. They'll have a casting block that'll make 100 Matchbox cars at a time. Maybe we just make that real big. Yeah, I mean, we have the Cathedral of Casting back there. So, yeah, let's do that. I mean, like, let's see what is the limit of physics of how big can a casting machine be? Let's find out. I'm down. Let's have some fun here. Push the limits of technology.
So that sounds really good. High speed consumer electronics line. People can't even get near it. 5 seconds. What did you hear from that?
Yeah, I mean, that would just be astonishingly fast and a game changer for the auto industry. I would imagine every single other auto company is probably, quaking in their boots when they think about how fast that is. The speed that Tesla already produces vehicles is astonishing. To get it down to something like 5 seconds or 10 seconds would be crazy. And I would imagine that there's very few auto industry executives today that can even comprehend that. And probably not even working on anything similar. So the innovation that's coming out of Tesla, while it may sometimes appear to be very slow, ultimately is very quick. The auto industry is a very slow-moving industry. It sounds like, though, one of the bottlenecks to this might be their ability to produce enough castings, fast enough. And so the question is, how quickly can that be resolved? So there may be some limiting factors along the way in the short term. And it might be one of those things where, 5 years from now, it's resolved. So we'll have to see.
Thank you for that. So that's the bot and the Cybercab, but there's quite a number of other things that he did give an update to. Thank you to VK. I think he was the one that created this table, so he took it and let's take a look at it. So here's the key things that Elon talked about last night. So Optimus bot, we already covered it. It's our first units produced at Fremont, new hand now in production. Then he said that 10,000 units to be produced in 2025, but 5,000 to be delivered. So I'm not sure what that means, but I think he meant the capability to produce 10 to 12,000 units is what the goal is on the production line. But then let's say they make 5,000, 50,000 units in 2026, and a future target, he said 100 million. Okay, we covered that. One Cybercab every 5 seconds versus 35 seconds for Model Y. The other things he talked about is 4680 battery cells. It's the lowest cost per kilowatt hour in the world. And he said that he's very confident about the 4680s at this point. At one point he was very negative about it or just didn't know, but now he's sounding very confident. The in-house...
I do wish, real quick there, Herbert, I do wish that we would have received a bit more of an update on the 4680 in terms of the number of batteries produced. They were giving us that information pretty consistently over the years. And it's been a little while since we have received an update. That would have been one thing last night I would have wished we would have received more information on.
Yeah, especially after the first earnings call, quarter one or Q4 earnings call a month ago, 2 months ago, he said that they're battery constrained. And he had to solve that problem. So that's, he didn't say anything about that. He said that in-house cathode production started, the anode production is under consideration because no other company is doing it. He wishes they wouldn't do it. This just tells you how, these guys have to do things that they feel like they need to do. But it sounds like that they're doubling down on battery manufacturing. And Dojo is, again, very positive. He said Dojo 1 is now active in New York and Palo Alto. It's handling 10% of FSC training. So we know that the Cortex is now at 50,000 down here, 50,000 GPUs at Giga Texas, and they're heading to 100,000 soon. They're adding to 100,000. He's called it the top 5 global cluster supercompute. And so 10% of FSC training has already been done by Dojo 1. Dojo 2 is coming, and that's going to be 10 times better potential breakthrough. Anything about Dojo that you thought was interesting?
Well, I think that's exciting. I think that's something that a lot of us have had some hope for, and particularly ultimately a future potential revenue stream for Tesla to the extent they can rent out this facility to others that need it. We're a long way from that yet. The fact that it's handling 10% of FSD training is kind of exciting. And it'd be nice if they can continue to make progress on this. And it sounds like Elon is excited about that.
Yeah, I think it's a big deal. I mean, if it's already doing 10% of FSC training, means that it's working and it's active, like you said, and it's actually useful. You wouldn't if NVIDIA's chips GPUs were so much better than Dojo, then you wouldn't bother doing this. Right. But they're actually using it now, so that might mean that it's actually useful for sometimes. And then we'll see if the Dojo 2 is really a breakthrough or not. It's a potential breakthrough.
It's interesting because in NVIDIA's presentations, they've really thrown cold water on many of these custom design chips. But they have not mentioned Tesla when they're throwing cold water on the chips. They've mentioned other companies like Microsoft and Amazon.
Yeah. It just gives Tesla, another out. If they can keep buying, of course they will, NVIDIA, but they can add supplement with their own. So this is good news along just in general. The vehicle production, did you think that this was new information? He goes on track to build their 10th millionth car by 2026. And then he said these 10 million cars will do the work of 50 million vehicles by 2026, because if they can do autonomy, and then he went through the same thing he's always said, right? A car is only used 10 hours a week, but you can get around 50, 60, 80 hours a week if you rent it out and let it, be driving as a ride-hail service. So 10 million cars by 2026. That means 3 million from now till then. Is that in line with what you're expecting?
Yeah, I heard 10 million sort of in 2026, not by or at the end. I think earlier you said it was the end of 2026.
Right.
This is suggesting that it's, at the end of this year. I highly doubt that they'll get to that number by the end of this year or by January 1 of 2026. But sometime in 2026, and that, again, is not a stretch with just the production that they're making now. So that wasn't really any new information. That's just extrapolating kind of where they're at. But still, a 10 million milestone is pretty impressive for any car company. It's a hard thing to get to. Elon talked about making 20 cars in a single year and wanting to make 20 in a month, right?
Yeah.
So they've come a long way, right? He's reminding people that this has been tough, right?
Yeah.
In terms of the utilization of vehicles, I mean, 10 million robotaxis will do the work of 50 million, maybe even more cars. And that's kind of exciting. Again, I don't know that it's by 2026, but just in general, that robotaxi will be, the utilization of that will be far higher than any sort of personally owned vehicle.
I think the combination of his comments about, that, let's say the 10 millionth number, like you said, whether it's somewhere in the middle or the end or wherever it happens, if he is forecasting you 10 million, that means that we're at 7, we're going to sell 3. And then he said that Model Y is expected to be the number 1 best-selling globally for the 3rd year in 2025, which is this year. He believes, he's already saying, it's going to be the number 1 best-selling car again for the 3rd year, because it's been for the last 2 years. It just tells you that, I guess it's just based on his comments, that there isn't this massive loss in demand because of, brand's crisis that's going on.
Right.
I mean, we don't know yet, but just, these little breadcrumbs, right? So we'll see.
I now believe that Model Y is going to surprise us, particularly in the second half of this year, with their rate of production, and then of course deliveries will follow.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be actually quite impressive.
I do too. I do. So which means that, yes, they lost sales in the first 3 months because they're, they stopped manufacturing the old Model Y, but I think that it's going to catch up because it's going to outsell the old Model Y. It is such a better car.
Yep.
We'll see if that is true, despite the brand crisis that we're going through.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see. Tesla Semi Factory construction remains on track to finish this year. Future targets 1 million semis produced per year. I think the way he said the 1 million semis, it's like, I don't know. It sounded like it didn't sound like it was that confident about that. That's what he was going to do. Did you hear something different?
Well, the factory, I believe, has a capacity of like 50,000 a year. So to get to 1 million a year would be a bit of a stretch. That would be, probably a lot more semi factories. I don't know that he said per year on the 1 million target.
Yes, I don't think I heard the per year. I agree with you. Yeah.
Right.
There you go. I think that was incorrect here.
He says on track to complete the factory, we'll make millions of Tesla Semi, and we'll have the ability to go autonomous down the road. So that's actually the more significant thing in terms of autonomous semis. Just like autonomous vehicles do the work of 5 times as many cars, same may be true with autonomous semis. Yep.
And then we had already heard about his comment about the 50,000 ton machine. Just even getting better and better than what we're doing now. The NACS adapters, 160,000 produced gig in New York. Battery production, record high gig in Nevada. Cortex, 50,000, soon to be 100,000, top 5 global cluster. That was the list that this guy put together.
The thing too, he refers to Cortex as Cortex 1. So that implies that there's a Cortex 2.
Yeah.
And I believe from Joe Techmeyer, we're already seeing perhaps the ground being prepared for that.
Yeah. Okay, so then the last bit that he talked about, which I thought was pretty significant, was he talked about we're building a sustainable abundance. So he made a comment about the master plan, and I'll review that shortly here. But the mission for Tesla has always been sustainable energy, right? Accelerating the transition to sustainable energy. And then people said, well, now that you're adding bonds, what is a new mission? And he said it's sustainable abundance. And of course, I thought that was very simple, very easy to understand. And he said it's like the idealistic world, isn't it? Where you have abundance, you're making products, but then you don't want to make so much products that it's, hurting Earth, hurting, just all about manufacturing, but it's sustainable. That would be very interesting if that's the case. How did you take that? Yeah.
Yeah, I thought this was a really nice evolution of, the Tesla's mission statement. I think this will become formalized at some point. People also asking him about Master Plan, Part 4.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and he said it's really just Master Plan Part 3 plus the abundance part becomes Master Plan Part 4. Because Master Plan Part 3 is sustainable energy for the world, and that job is not done yet. It's going to take decades to get there. So Master Plan Part 3 will go on for some time, and so add this component to it in terms of abundance for all via autonomous vehicles and robotics. I think it's a nice compliment. I think it's obviously increases the market opportunity for Tesla in a massive way, and it paints a picture. He asked during the session. He said, what does an amazing future look like? And he challenged people to actually stop and think about that. What is your idea of an amazing future? And I think a lot of people initially focus on the threat that robotics has on jobs, right? But it also has the ability, just like every other new technology, to massively improve human existence. The reality is there are a lot of people today that do jobs that are dangerous, that are dirty, that are unhealthy for them, that shorten their lives, right? They're unsafe. And so to the extent that we can, get beyond that, that's good for all of humanity. And of course, with autonomous vehicles, it's going to make the roads a lot more safe, right? And reduce the death and destruction on roads. These are all good things. These are all excellent things for humanity. Yes, we may have to figure out other ways of spending our time if we're not working as much. But you know what? There are plenty of people living today that don't work, that don't seem to have any kind of crisis. Now, can we achieve that for all of humanity? Well, that remains to be seen. And this idea of the sustainable abundance, part of it is, well, okay, how are we going to ensure that everybody gets to enjoy this? And those are some of the big questions we don't know yet. But I think the picture that Elon is trying to paint here is a pretty exciting one. And of course, keep in the back of your mind that Elon too is thinking about Mars. And so he needs a very capable humanoid robot to help with the project that Mars is as well.
I think you and I have had this conversation before, and I just had a recent one, which is, well, the concern for people is purpose. And what did Elon's call it? He used another word for other than purpose, right? Like, some enjoying life, right? What's, being able to have enjoyment of life. And then, so in order to do that, you go, well, the bots are going to take over all the jobs, which is very likely to do, right? Your white collar jobs and the blue collar jobs. But if you stop and think about it and really, what percentage of people actually love their jobs? And is that fulfilling? I think that's a word you use, fulfilling, right?
Fulfilling.
Is that fulfilling for people? The current jobs that they have now. So I think it could become a wash where a lot of people who weren't fulfilled now don't need to become a dishwasher for the rest of their life or a garbage man for the rest of their life. They can do something different. They would be happier maybe than if they were doing that job. Not everybody. A lot of people just have something to do. That could be worse if you didn't have anything to do. But sustainable abundance is very interesting. We need to think that through, what that could look like. But yeah, you're a bit more optimistic than I am. I'm still thinking that I'm probably at the 70% bad outcome world and 30% good outcome world. I think I've heard Elon say 50-50 at this point. It could be a 50-50 thing where it goes. But let's listen to what he said about Master Plan Part 4 and what is Tesla's new mission. Well, let's listen to this.
We're in phase 3 of the master plan, since Master Plan 1 and 2 have been completed. Now, Master Plan part 3 is a very long master plan because it's basically making all energy on Earth sustainable. And I actually need to supplement it with the sort of abundance for all. Maybe that's master plan 4. I've kind of described master plan 4 essentially, which is like autonomous cars, autonomous humanoid robots. You combine that with like solar and battery storage, and I think the future is going to be incredible. So I'll take a couple more questions and call it a night.
Yeah. So
yeah, the interesting thing there you also mentioned is, you said the future we're headed for is one where you can literally have anything you want. And I think that's hard for anybody to imagine because they immediately go to this idea of, well, if I don't have a job, how am I going to afford anything I want? And so there's a question then about distribution of this abundance. And it's still an unanswered question, right? And he talks about enabling the production of goods and services with no limit. So in theory, we can eventually make anything we want in any quantity we want, and everybody can have whatever they want. But where the rubber meets the road, how does that actually work? And Elon's talked about before, what's money at this point? We know this future world can come. We just don't quite yet know where the framework for it, because it's clear that today's framework may not really apply so well. And so that's where the uncertainty lies, in my opinion. There's also a risk because how we treat people that lose their jobs to this new world becomes a massive political issue that could derail us if not handled properly. And so I think we need to be honest about that. I think we need to have discussions about that, and sooner the better, because this is coming at us quickly. Now, initially, we get to enjoy robots taking jobs that people don't want, and that's great. Right? There's already a shortage of jobs in the world. Jensen this week talked about a shortage of 50 million workers worldwide. So there's put 50 million robots in, that's great. But then you keep adding robots, and if Elon's making 100 million a year, you are going to take people's jobs away. And that's a very deflationary force in the world, which is great. It's going to reduce the cost of everything for everybody else. But at the limit, where are the jobs? The robots are doing them all. Nothing left for humans to do. That's a very scary place. But there's a process to get from where we are today to that point that'll play out over a number of years or decades. And just because it's unclear doesn't mean that it's bad. It's just we haven't figured it out yet.
Yeah. So I highly recommend people to, I guess we need to find those videos. You and I did a video a while back now where you outlined how much money these robots, humanoid robots, vendors are going to be making because the margins are so high compared to the cost of a human worker. And therefore, you recommended at the time that maybe there should be a tax on governments, cities, and a tax on the vendors themselves. And I really like that idea, right? So let's say that a vendor comes into a business or a company and they lay off when they get to the point. Like you said, there's a lot of jobs that are unfilled. Remember, we even came up with that, I think, an idea that we'd like to promote, right? Which is a company needs to first do a job posting, and only if 3 months they aren't able to fill that job, then they're able to, use a bot for that job. If they use the bot for that job, the humanoid vendor should be taxed. And you mapped it out. So even if you tax them, the vendors will still be making a lot of money. You take that tax and you give it as a fund for that employees that are going to be displaced. And so that could solve the issue of the specific employee at the specific business that are being displaced, to at least make sure that they have some sort of, it's not just a complete fire. You're now going to be poor and you're not going to have any money anymore. So I really think that that's at least a way to soften the blow.
It's a way. I think it needs to be more deeply thought through. The concern I would have with that is you create this bureaucracy around deploying humanoid robots when maybe another country doesn't have the bureaucracy and they can make a leap ahead of you because they're not tying your hands, right? There's that competitive risk as well. So it's one of these great things where society at large benefits from the deflationary force that humanoid robots represent.
Hmm.
But like any technology, there are individuals along the way that are harmed by it, right? For example, if you move away from coal production, there's people that mine coal that lose their income,
Hmm.
and how you take care of them matters, right? And I think that this is my observation. This may be right or wrong. I don't know that as a society we do a particularly good job
Hmm.
of taking care of people that are harmed by technology advances. Now, is it society's, responsibility to do that? People have different opinions about that, right? But I think we need to be very clear with people about what's coming so that they can prepare themselves. If you're in a job that's likely to be taken by a robot, and again, anything that's physical labor is in that category at some point, then you have a responsibility now to start thinking about how to position yourself for this new world. Now, it's not so easy because these things aren't so clear about how this is going to play out. So, this is a discussion that we just need to bring to the forefront, not to scare people, but to allow them time to think and prepare for a new future, right? And it's we need to be careful about this because if we don't do it sooner rather than later, we're going to miss an opportunity, and it's going to become a crisis, and then
Hmm.
it's going to become a political battle between two different competing versions of a world. And depending on who wins, you may end up with a situation that you're not so happy with. So yeah, this is kind of an interesting time. We've got a few short years, I think, to really have a good discussion about this to figure out what the best path forward is.
Yeah. So, Tesla, sustainable abundance, that's their new mission. He articulated it yesterday, and then he's going to write a master plan for. But as an investor in Tesla, again, if you believe that they're going to solve autonomy, and we're so friggin' close, it's pretty well a done deal as far as I'm concerned. You got regulatory approval being happening. You actually see the cars. We're driving it ourselves. We know that it can do this. Then you've got bots. And this one, a lot of people are still skeptical. Lots of demos. Demos is one thing. And I totally agree with that. The demos are very much, you can't trust the demo. You do not trust the demo. But this is the year that we're going to actually have production, not just, 20, 50, 100 that you can produce. I can make 1,000 mannequins easily. But to actually do mass production the way that he's talking about, and mass production of Cybercabs, which is the very first purpose-built car for a vehicle for specifically designed for robotaxi. We're here. We'll find out soon enough.
And
But
I can't wait to see the frequency that bots come off the production line. If cars
what's
come
your
off every 5 seconds,
yeah,
are we going to get a bot every second
probably. I mean,
or
it's
less?
you know the numbers. It's like 132 of a car, right? It's like, yeah.
Right. That's going to be interesting. Yeah.
And it's really interesting that they're already doing. He called it a consumer line, the Cybercab. It's like almost
Yeah.
like a consumer, all automated, and it's unboxed. Well, guess what? If you're making the bot, it's going to be unboxed, automated consumer production line kind of thing.
That's
You've
right.
seen those videos, right?
Yeah.
It'll be good. So, lots of videos of that you've done in the past, certain research you've done, the forecast you've done. It really, it's even though you did it a while ago, it's all coming. It's happening. The numbers aren't as crazy as you were being called at the time. Because here we go. This is the numbers we're hearing from the CEOs, not just Elon.
Yeah, and I've
And
always said that the numbers I've thrown out there, are likely to be completely wrong, but we're just trying to directionally get it
yeah,
right and adjust over time.
yeah,
It turns out some of the numbers that we threw out, actually appear to be in the ballpark.
yeah.
So that's kind of nice, and there might have been an element of luck to that, but there's no doubt that autonomy for vehicles is a solved problem. We know the pathway to solve it. It's not solved yet, but we know the pathway. It's a matter of applying compute over time to get to the result that we want. Same thing with robotics. We're maybe a little bit earlier on the curve in terms of solving the problem to create autonomous humanoid robots, but we now know how to do it. Maybe there's a few other things to resolve in terms of the robots themselves and making them, more durable and that kind of thing. And maybe there's some material science work that needs to be done there over time. And again, I'm confident that collectively the industry will figure that out. But these things are coming, and they appear to be accelerating every single year. Um, and that's what's hard for us, I think, as linear thinkers to really comprehend. But this will come at us probably faster than we realize. Again, we may overestimate the number of bots made this year and next year, but we're probably far underestimating what the production will be in 5 years.
That can apply to the stock as well. We may overestimate what we think the stock should be doing in the next couple of years, but we're going to completely underestimate it. If these things do come true, the production lines for Cybercab, the robots, autonomy, it's much bigger than we realize. And that's why sustainable abundance is such a massive vision, mission. It's so big. I mean, we're talking not only for one company, we're talking about not only for one country. It's like the earth, it's humanity. It's interesting, and we're following it. Thank you so much, Cern. Follow him on his X account at Cern Basher. Check out his videos. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Herbert.
I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com.